Tips and Tricks show. I am so grateful to be here with all of you. We have a special guest, Kristen Westcott, and we're talking about how to own your energy today. We want to be aware of those feelings of anxiousness and be able to own our mind and our energy and own our calendar so that we aren't overwhelming ourselves, but instead actually setting us up for success. Because as entrepreneurs, we are our own glass ceiling and we're in charge of what we put in our calendar every day. So it's time to own it and own our energy. So without further ado, please introduce yourself, Kristen. We're so grateful you're here.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Kristen Westcott. I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario, so just north of Buffalo, New York, for those of you who are trying to place that. And I am a life and business coach, and I support anxious entrepreneurs in building sustainable businesses that eliminate their overwhelm so they can manage their energy while growing their business at the same time.
I love that. And that's so important because I know for a lot of business owners, they get overwhelmed and they give up. And it's very plausible that you're going to get overwhelmed at some point. And there will always be more things a business owner. Like, be grateful for that to-do list because it means you're in business. And guess what? It's never going to end. If you're in business and you're constantly growing and evolving, it's always going to grow. But it's just our ability to manage the things in the calendar, manage and respect our own tolerance and our energy and what works for us, because what works for somebody else might not work for us, and really respecting what is in alignment with us, with getting us to our goals, and then also those boundaries, right? Like really protecting what we put into that calendar. So you have some tips on your zone of genius today. So what is your tips and tricks that you want to help people with to avoid and overcome that anxiousness and overwhelm?
Yeah. So one of the tips is to reframe what you're experiencing. And I know, Heather, you talk about this a lot. But so when I was first diagnosed with anxiety, my initial reaction was like, how do I fix this? How do I get rid of this? How do I solve this? And well, that might have been a good starting place for me. I came to realize that there was no getting rid of it. I needed to learn to embrace it and to work with it rather than working against it. And so, in reframing that, I now help people recognize how they can turn their anxiety into their superpower and have it work for them. So, the first thing is to kind of reframe whatever it is that you're feeling challenged with that day and really looking at is there a way that you can kind of flip the script on that and help you to feel a little bit more empowered about whatever it is that you're feeling is limiting you at the moment.
I love that. When we can look at what's limiting us from an empowered perspective, it actually gives us our power back and allows us to be able to take that on. Because if we come from it from a fear, worry, overwhelmed state, then we're in that fight or flight state versus rest and digest. And when we're in that fight or flight state, we get into freeze mode. No inspired action is happening there. And if we're not in freeze mode yet, we may be in chaotic mode, which means we're doing a bunch of things, but nothing really well. And maybe we're doing a bunch of things, but not necessarily the things that are moving us closer to our goal. And those things lead to more anxiety and more overwhelm. And so when I used to work with clients with brain and spinal cord injuries, we used to do this tolerance exercise. And when I was post-concussion, this exercise literally saved my life. Because what I would find is if we do too much in one day, we'd be really exhausted the next day. So the tendency is to just get it all done. But then if we're doing that, then we have really low energy for the next 2 days, or maybe we don't feel like doing anything. So then we don't touch it again for a week. And that lack of consistency actually really impacts our energy and our efforts. And what we want to do instead is actually figure out what is our tolerance in a day. So I found with me, they say to chunk the calendar and put all your client calls in one day. But that is way too high of a tolerance level for me. So I work in my business in the morning and calls in the afternoons, and I only do so many client calls and so many sales and connect calls per day. And I know what is in my tolerance and what I prefer, which actually will allow me to show up as my fullest self, fully energized, fully present for those calls, and then still wake up and feel good the next day and not burnt out and not able to do anything for a couple days and anxious and overwhelmed and exhausted. So now I'm more behind, and now the list is bigger, and now I'm more anxious and
Yeah.
overwhelmed and exhausted. And it's like a vicious cycle. So
Yeah.
it's being honest with what is our tolerance in a day for all the different types of tasks too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And here's the myth is people think that we're going to just check things off our to-do list and be able to kind of like get it all done if we just maximize productivity. But the reality of entrepreneurship is for everything you check off your to-do list, you've likely added 2 more items. That list is ongoing. And so if you're focused on getting everything done on that list, then that's going to drain your energy because you're never going to have the satisfaction of everything being done on that list because you're going to be constantly adding to it. So one of the things I always recommend when I'm talking to my clients and to other people is, to set one intention for the day, just one intention, so that if everything else goes crazy, you lose internet access, whatever else might be happening in your day, you just have that one thing. Whereas if nothing else on your to-do list got done and you were able to move forward, not even complete, but move forward in that one section of your day, what is that thing? What is that intention for the day? And then anytime that panic hits or that overwhelm hits, or you're having that moment where your brain is trying to, freak you out a little bit, ask yourself, is this thing I'm worrying about or this thing that I'm doing, is it getting me closer to that and finishing that intention for the day? Or is this a distraction diverting me from the intention I've set for myself for the day?
Absolutely. And I have been reminding myself recently, there's an NLP tool where we remind ourselves that when we do this self-sabotaging behavior, it's actually for a secondary gain. So what's the secondary gain? I'm avoiding doing the thing so I can say, see, I told you I'm not good enough. Secondary gain is that my limiting belief that I'm not good enough gets validified. But
Mm-hmm.
the truth is, I didn't do the thing to figure out if it worked, to even know if I was good enough. So I always like to ask myself also, like, what is the secondary gain on this behavior? And I love the what, like if we just are successful in one thing every day, because the avoidance and the procrastination, it actually increases the anxiety, increases the overwhelm, increases the burnout, because it's almost like you're doing it all because we're always worrying about it. It's taking up all this mental real estate. Yet it's not getting done. Yet we're getting burnt out like it's getting done because we're just always analyzing and feeling overwhelmed about it. When I was post-concussion, my tolerance of actual activity was 4 hours a day at one point. So 4 hours a day, I could see clients, or I could do courseware, or I could write client reports, but it was 4 hours. So if I needed to see 2 clients every single day and one thing to move me forward in my business, if I just did one thing every single day, and I mean, at this point, I called it an integrity list because I had lost a lot of my tolerance. I was behind on so many things. And I thought that list was never going to end. And I thought it was going to be impossible. And I remember I gave myself 2 options. I was like, well, you could quit and give up, but that's really not going to get you your desired outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
The freedom or what have you that you're looking for. Or what if I just did one thing every day? And if I do my best and get one thing done every single day, Monday to Friday, that's 20 things I did this month. And if I don't get that one thing done today, that's okay. Every day I do my best, and my best is enough. Because then when we make ourselves bad and wrong after we don't do the thing, it actually causes us more stress, and then we're more anxious and overwhelmed and burnt out, and we probably don't do that one thing the next day.
Right.
So that one task, activity, tool, resource, however you want to look at it, if you did one thing every day to move yourself forward personally and professionally, just one thing, your whole life could change 2 weeks, 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year from now. Sometimes we think, oh, but but we're overwhelmed and burnt out because all we did was think about it, all this energy and mental real estate, and yet we're nowhere forward than we were before. So I love that. That is the best tip. One thing every single day, move yourself forward personally, professionally. Tip number 2 is really making sure that you're owning that energy. So being honest of what works for you in a day, right? It's different for everybody. And then what's your last piece of advice you want to give everybody?
So it's just building on doing what works for you and recognizing that just because somebody suggests that you set your program up a certain way, set your day up a certain way, your week up a certain way, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to work for you. So be okay with taking the advice you're given and tailoring it to what does work for you. So I have an energy management process where I take multiple points throughout the day where I have to reset. And so some people have a morning energy practice, some people have a nighttime energy practice. My brain requires me to reset multiple points throughout the day. And so what I've done is I've created my own energy management routine that I do multiple points throughout the day. And that's what works for me. And so, you have to kind of find in the bits of advice circling around the internet, how you can take them and adapt them to be what truly fits for you, because not everybody knows your personal circumstances, your past experiences, where you're at with your business, how big your team is. I mean, there's so many factors that we don't necessarily know about the people that are supporting us, including Heather and I, right? That you have to be able to take that information and say, okay, how can I adapt this to be what I truly need right now? What elements can I pull from this to be supportive in where I'm at right now with my business growth?
I love that. So taking a unique approach for you, doing what works for you, filling your cup first, and getting one thing done a day, and using a technique and modifying it for yourself, right? So there's the Pomodoro, right? You take a 5-minute break every 25 minutes. That's a great technique that we used to use with clients with high states of stress, high states of stress or anxiety or anything like that. And I'm with you fully. So in between calls or tasks, so if one is sales, one is marketing, one is surveying, I take an intention break. So there's a break for me for a bathroom, there's a 5-minute break for drinks, and there's 5-minute break for movement, energy reset. So it's a 15-minute timeout before the next task that's in a different energy. So it's like a refill and a reset and recalibrate. Set the intentions, dive into the next. Love that, finding what works for you so that you set yourself up for success in a day. I love it. I love it. So where can people learn more about you, and what is your free gift for them today?
So my free gift is just in alignment with that, it's an energy management guide that they can literally print out, and there's 10 different strategies on there that they can pull from to use what works best to help them support reducing their entrepreneurial stress, anxiety, the overwhelm that they're experiencing throughout the day. So practical tips that don't require you to meditate. So if you're somebody who's just like, I don't want one more person to suggest to me that I meditate, this is not that guide. These are practical tips that you can use to help you really kind of get a hold of your energy throughout the day. And you can find that at kristenwestcott.com/own it. And that's all together. Just own it is together. That's also where you can find me for now. I'm going to be launching a new website in the next month when I'll be sharing all about that on social media. And that website's going to really be geared towards supporting anxious entrepreneurs, highly sensitive entrepreneurs who are experiencing a lot of stress and overwhelm while growing their business. So stay tuned for that. That's coming soon as well.
I love that. So you can manage the stress and the overwhelm and still be a successful entrepreneur and enjoy the journey. So it's kristenwestcott.com/own it. Awesome. So guys, go there, grab that free guide today, and then keep an eye open for the offers Kristen has coming up to help us all bring down the anxiousness and overwhelm and avoid the burnout and truly set us up for success with the business that leaves us feeling good and allows us to leave the impact and allows us to feel happy and fulfilled doing what we love. So thank you so much for being on the show, guys. Make sure you grab that link below. And remember, expect magic and miracles, stay happy, healthy, wealthy, and we'll see you back next time.